Hey, what is up? Welcome to the Attractions Group podcast. We've been seeing you here a little more than usual recently.
Yeah, a little bit. Well, it's a problem that we have that we push the upload button, and lo and behold, a news item comes out that we just
Yes.
had we let the one go with the Hershen purchasing Palace, and we just couldn't let Great Six Flags America go. Couldn't let that one rest.
We could not.
So
And so if you
it
haven't
is what
seen
it
that
is.
episode, go check it out. We break down some of the things in regards to the closer business wise and what parks we think are completely safe in the chain and what parks we think are not so safe in the chain from being sold or being closed. But that's in the past now. Today we've got a very exciting episode, a great interview coming up with Cassie Tucker, lots of discussion about
Absolutely.
Epic Universe. But first, I have a great experience recently of watching a video of Millennium
Okay.
Force running
Oh,
through its track and not quite making it. Let's put it that way. So I don't know if you saw this. Millennium Force Valleyed. They were, totally normal thing. This happens all the time. But,
hmm
it didn't make it back home, which obviously it would have been better if I was on the train. That would have been way more fun.
of course it would. Of course,
But I wasn't, unfortunately, so it's a shame.
but
Just goes to show
it,
you,
Cle-
this is why you need to be on every roller coaster at every moment. That's why. But
yeah, now, Clay, I've ridden Millennium Force a number of times. Yeah, maybe my memory isn't as good as it should be, probably. But where on earth does a roller coaster go slow enough that it would even valley? I mean, it seems to me that it's
well,
pretty much from start to finish is going 70 miles per hour.
yeah, speed is kind of the name of the game with that ride. But so you drop, you go over your first overbank turn, you turn, airtime hill, big helix, and then you come back and you hit kind of another airtime hill right there. From what it looks like in the video, that's where it valleyed, which makes some sense. That's probably the third biggest hill on the ride besides the lift hill. But still, that ride usually is hauling, as the kids would say, through
Yeah,
that layout. So I'm a little surprised for sure.
but now, how does that really happen? Because I can understand for roller coasters like T2, where I believe each, now I could be wrong, and if I am, correct me, but each train as it goes out is kind of measured up by sensors by how much lift needs to go to shoot it over the top.
Yeah,
Millennium Force is pretty much you're going the same speed. Every train goes out, goes up the track or the hill at the same speed. So every train, more or less, whether the train's empty or whether it's full, gets the same liftoff, I guess. So
yeah.
how is it that some trains do and some trains don't?
Well, basically, a roller coaster is, of course, not powered. That's kind of the definition of a roller coaster. And that means that there, can be circumstances where if the ride is running slowly, it won't make it. And what it means for a ride normally to be running slowly when it's not a launched coaster, because truly with a launched coaster, it's usually about how
Right.
hard the launch is hitting. But in early parts of the season when the ride hasn't been running as much, or even early in the morning on days where it was a little brisk the night before, the grease in the wheel bearings on the ride can get a little more viscous than normal and can act to add a little more drag than normal, and the ride might not get up to the speed it's used to getting up to. And it's as simple as that. There are parks where if the temperature is in a certain range, they can't open some of their coasters because the Banshee, for instance, cannot open below. I don't remember the number anymore, but below a certain temperature because the grease will get a little too viscous and the ride will just be running really slowly. Um, that being said, there are ways you can counteract this too. If you've ever heard coaster enthusiasts talking about night rides, night rides are great for
hmm
two reasons. One is that it's nighttime and you can see less and it's prettier and all these things. But two is that the ride is running at its fastest point in the day. So my favorite way to ride Diamondback is on a hot July day at the end of the night when it started raining because
Huh.
we're freeing everything up, and now the track gets a little slippery. It's like it's running crazy fast in that circumstance, And so, yeah, I mean, I make sense. It's pretty early. It was a cold winter. It was probably earlier in the day when Millennium Force valleyed. And there are others
Hmm.
too. A ride can valley sometimes by an emergency stop being pressed at a time when it was not going to be able to be fully stopped. So, for instance, when you hit the emergency stop, all the brakes everywhere on the ride will close, of course, because that's their default setting, right? So if there's no
Hmm.
power given on the ride, all the brakes are automatically on. So you cut power to the ride, all the brakes, boom, they apply. If a ride is cruising through a mid-course brake run, and let's say the mid-course is right here, the train is on the mid-course, actively moving very quickly, and the emergency stop is pressed, it might not be the situation where you can stop the ride, but it
Hmm.
might still have been slowed down substantially by the application of those brakes. So in Vertigo Valley, like in 2020, maybe, and I believe that's what happened. It was like the e-stop was pressed while the ride was falling down lift two, and so it got through the first loop, but it couldn't get through the Cobra roll. Pretty interesting thing.
Yeah, now I'm going to get ahead of some comments before I get hated on in the comment section, because when I was making this the line between Millennium Force valleying and T2 valleying, I know T2 is not going to valley; it's going to roll back. Sorry, I want to make sure that, because I didn't make that distinction before, but it also brings up another question, which I think I know the answer to it, but some people listening may not. When a roller coaster, give it regardless of what roller coaster it is, when it does valley, presents a couple problems. Number one, how do you get everybody off of there? Number two, how do you get the train back to the pole position?
Yeah. That's I think probably a lot of times when they valley, that's what everyone involved is thinking. Like the maintenance guys are like, I don't know. Does someone in the ops department have a plan to get this train back? And the ops people are like, no,
Mm-hmm.
you're the man. But I think usually it comes down to you have to take the train apart. And the number of pieces maybe is different for different types of ride models. Maybe sometimes you can just take the wheel assemblies off and then pick up the train as a whole. But a lot of times you gotta just take it apart, move it back to the station, put it back together, and a heck of a lot later you got your ride back to normal.
So now, when people are trapped on the roller coaster, wooden coaster is a little different because there's usually a little walkway that accompanies the track. But on a steel coaster, they could valley sometimes higher up in the air, and I mean, I don't know if maybe they could be 5 feet off the ground or 50 feet off the ground. It kind of presents problems when they need to get people off. And I'm sure there's people on there thinking, okay, I got about 10 minutes before I need to hit the restroom, and this exit better happen fast. So how do they get people off of those when they're not at ground level?
There's a variety of methods. Certainly, there are. So, for instance, if and Vertigo is a ride I know a lot about because I spent a lot of time operating that ride. And that ride had a place where it could valley controllably. So it valleyed in between the loop and the Cobra roll like 4 years back, but it would kind of valley all the time, just in between lift two and the loop. And if it valleyed there, it was bad. But we had a winch system where we could winch them up, and we also had a
Mhm.
scissor lift where we could raise it up and get all the guests off before we scissor lifted it back up and ran it back through the course. The scissor lift kind of part of that is very common. I think, although yes, sometimes getting the ride back can be a struggle, parks are so prepared for being able to evacuate the people on the rides from literally anywhere. I would say it's no sweat. At Millennium Force, when it valleyed, there was no one on it, but certainly Cedar Point would have been prepared to handle it well had there been.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just curious. I mean, is that something that you know how they would evacuate people if it's up in the air?
Yeah, I would imagine it's mostly scissor lift. Truly, I think.
Okay, so,
Yeah, like it's just those big old platforms, and
got
you
it.
have to
Yeah.
do it very slowly because of that. But if it's high enough, there's usually a catwalk. So like Valraven, uh, both for the first lift hill and the mid course brake run. I don't know why I went to Valraven, but you can see the staircases very visibly there.
Mm-hmm.
If the ride was to get stuck and like the blocks wouldn't clear, whatever, they could do it there. For valleying purposes, I don't think they're too worried about it valleying anywhere that's not really close to the ground, just because that's kind of what valleying means.
All right. I was just curious on that because I mean we do have it as the parks are starting to open the summer operations. These are going to be, and now it's made news. I think because it's for the first couple weekends of the season. Here in about a month, okay, it's not. It's going to be back page stuff. So yeah,
Exactly.
moving on, Cleet. Honestly, and I started this last week. We didn't do it yesterday, but a little thing I want to keep doing until something happens. Just keep doing it until it happens. The whole little segment of did they respond? And I'm happy to say I do have it. I have an update for that for this installment of did they respond.
Hooray!
So what is the question that you would like to ask?
Well, David, did they respond?
Let me check here, and the update for this week is no response. So no response yet.
I was
Neither.
very hopeful there. I was very
Well,
hopeful.
it was an update. It wasn't a positive update, but it was an update nonetheless. So nope, still gonna continue down that path.
Okay. That is an update. R/ technically the truth right there.
Yes.
So I've made this awesome new banner for this new segment we're getting started with today. Reimagine this. So, yeah. So you're gonna imagine something again this way around. So I'm a cast member at the Walt Disney Company. This is a very Disney related question. This has nothing to do with me being a cast member here. Just Cleet talking as Cleet here. And you'll see what this is the most unrealistic thing to ever happen. So, but hear me out, David. I need you to reimagine this.
Hit me with it.
Okay. Disney approaches you and they say, David, we got a project for you. We're gonna
We're based in
remove
reality, aren't we?
all of the IPs from our parks in Orlando, from the Disney World parks. They're all going away. And
is it going to be like Roller Coaster Tycoon, where it's Roller Coaster 1 and Swing 1? There we go.
That's right. That's what everything's called.
All right.
And but you can do something about this because they tell you we want you to select one IP. Now that can be a TV show, it could be a movie, it could be a franchise of movies. We want you to select one IP for each park. We've Disney has decided here in this hypothetical, we've gotten too spread out in our IPs. We're trying to do too many. We just want to do 4, one for each park. What parks are you going to give to what IPs? And obviously, this is a preference question. You can think about it from a very business, like this is the best 4 for like attracting people, or you could just tell me what you would prefer. But reimagine the IPs of the 4 Disney parks.
Honestly, well, I guess start off the easiest one,
Okay.
Magic Kingdom, because it has Cinderella's castle. You got to go Cinderella.
Okay.
That's an iconic thing there that you can't really change. You can't say. I guess you could say Star Wars and you turn it to a Death Star. That'd be kind of interesting. But no, it's got the castle. Castle's not going to go anywhere. So the first one going to go pretty easy. You theme it to Cinderella. Now I don't know which ride you'd name Lucifer after the cat, but yeah. So number 2, wow. Animal Kingdom, probably go with Jungle Book.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean,
it's got the
it makes sense. Let's see. Hollywood Studios. I'd either got to go one of 2, Star Wars or Toy Story.
That's kind of the natural thing. I'm going to make you pick, though. I really am.
Oh. I don't know. Probably got to go Star Wars because they're still punching out movies, and Toy Story. I guess they're coming out the Toy Story 5, but sooner or later, they're probably going to wind the franchise down, and there's still a lot more stories you could tell Star Wars. Yeah. So Hollywood Studios becomes Star Wars, becomes the Death Star. There we go. Yeah. And let's see. So we have Epcot. Goodness.
This one's a tough one because, like,
it is.
What do you do with the World Showcase? Like, yes.
Does it have to be a Disney IP?
Or one they could reasonably purchase to use in their parks. Like, they're not going to roll with Harry Potter because they wouldn't ever get the contract. But
no, I would say National Lampoon's European Vacation. But let's see, go something a little more.
That movie.
You got to get the World Showcase in there somehow.
Yeah, okay,
So
all right.
you can't do Guardians of the Galaxy because that'd be redundant with Star Wars. Oh boy, this is a tough one. Um, I don't know. What would you retheme it?
For Epcot, I would. This is my by far my worst opinion of the four because no, this movie's not that popular. But I would retheme it to the film Soul about Joe
Films.
Gardner's adventures in the
Okay.
great before and the great beyond. Because Soul's like central thesis is that like everyday life is extraordinarily sacred and you can't just let it blow by you. And so you could do this whole thing about like world nature. It's just like the world. It's not really anything IP based, but that's like Joe or
Yeah.
22 learning about how just life is so important. So I think Soul, and also that movie's so good.
I guess I got to think in my head as you're saying that. How is Chris Pratt gonna narrate that in the line cue for the Guardians of the Galaxy? How does that roll?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good
Chris
question. We
Pratt, like
might
he and
have
I
to.
are on first name basis.
Yeah, Chris and I are on.
Yeah.
Chris, that's good. Well, I'll give you some time to think about Epcot, and I'll tell you what I would do with the other three parks.
Okay, go ahead.
I would do Magic Kingdom as I think you got to do a princess story there, just
Hmm.
naturally. But I would do it with Rapunzel. I would do it with Tangled. Um, I
Okay.
think because they have the Tangled, her tower there, and then you could do the
Yeah.
castle. That's like the castle is when she gets back. Could be awesome. So I'm doing that. And instead of Happily Ever After, the nighttime fireworks show could be like all the lanterns from. Okay, anyway, um,
Okay.
for this is my most biased opinion, even more than Soul. For Animal Kingdom, I would just do the film Coco because I love it so much. That's basically the only reason. And then for Hollywood Studios, I think you're right. You do have to either do Toy Story or Star Wars, but I am 4 years old, so I would choose Toy Story over Star Wars.
Okay. All right. And then back to Epcot. Goodness, I can't. To pull in the international showcase, maybe Ratatouille because the good theming back in the Paris area,
Yeah,
but at the same time, that doesn't get you out to the other areas because
well, they could.
honestly, Epcot's almost two parks.
It
You have
is.
the kind of the adventure area in the front, and then things themed off of the different areas of the world behind it. So
Yeah.
I guess I'd go the international showcase, Ratatouille, maybe, and I'm
Okay.
probably mispronouncing that, Ratatouille. Another one of those movies I've heard a lot, but haven't seen too many times. Heard it in the back seat, but and then in the front of the park, I don't care if Star Wars is over at Hollywood Studios. It could have an internal thing with Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah. Cool. That would be epic. That would be epic. There's enough stories to
So
tell with Star Wars that you could do too. You could do all four parks to Star Wars. Heck,
you,
if you wanted to.
you could. So well now dovetailing off of this, and my headset's fallen off. Let me do a reimagine this and put this back on you. Since we're doing start with the Disney theme, we'll just continue on with that. Let's bring up Walt Disney. Now, Mickey Mouse got a start because Walt was blocked from taking an IP that he had created for Warner Brothers, I think, named a rabbit named Oswald.
Yes.
So, what if reimagine this? What had happened, or maybe this is a what if question. What if what happens with Mickey, the whole deal with Magic Kingdom? How does this develop if it develops? If Walt was able to keep Oswald,
Wow. I have no idea. Definitely, Walt's life is so different. Does he even make Mickey Mouse ever? Because maybe he still
mm-hmm.
makes Mickey also, and then you have Mickey and Oswald, and maybe they're in the same universe
Yeah,
even, and they're friends. Who knows? But maybe he never has that Mickey guy. And if he doesn't have Mickey, whoa, whoa, there's no Mickey
yeah.
Mouse in the world. Um,
It's so interesting to think about that because honestly, and this is a what if question. I guess and I'll answer because I happen to think about that was sometimes some of the best ideas, some of the most creative thoughts come out of people's minds through adversity. Now,
mhm.
if he hadn't gone through this, he wouldn't have thought maybe that he had something to prove against I think it was Warner Brothers at the time. I forget what studios had it,
Yeah, I don't know.
but he definitely probably thought he had something to prove. Well, I'm going to show them. They're going to put Oswald on the shelf, and we're going to do it over here with a different character. So at that point, and it becomes a what if. Okay, what if we do this to combat them? And so what if we create a park that's around this character that we created? So it's just a whole rabbit hole. Oswald hole. There we go. It's going to go down the rabbit hole of that of what would have happened if that adversity not happened. It's a wild thing to consider. What would Orlando, Florida, and I guess the Anaheim area of Florida or California look like now?
Yeah, and also like Paris and the
Mm-hmm.
Beijing and Osaka, Japan. Because like, okay, let's go down this rabbit hole a little. So Disneyland, let's just say it's never built. Let's say somehow that leads to that.
Right.
1955 doesn't happen. Okay. Um, Disney World would certainly never have gotten built, but it's not like media parks were only Disney parks, right? So Universal, of course, exists these days, but like Paramount owned parks, would they have ever ventured into the theme park world
Mm-hmm.
if they didn't know that Disney was doing the same thing?
All
Maybe
right.
the answer is yes. Maybe they would have filled that gap and they would have done the really luxurious ones, and they'd be today. We wouldn't go to Disney World. We'd go to Paramount World, maybe, but maybe not. Maybe there's just no parks there. If that is true, the city of Orlando is like a medium medium-sized citrus farming town. The University of Central Florida probably does exist because of the rocket infrastructure over on
Right.
Cape Canaveral, but it's probably much smaller. Adventureland in Iowa was pretty much solely based off of Disneyland. Maybe they build a park there, but that would be totally different. It's unbelievable to think about everything that this domino effect might create. And I'm sure I'm missing huge things.
Mm-hmm. Or even what became Kings Island from Coney Island, that would have been completely different because Roy Disney, of course, it opened after Walt had passed away, but Roy Disney consulted on the project.
Yeah.
And the whole dynamic of, I believe, the Kings Island had 5 specific areas of the park when they opened were based on the areas that, not specifically like Tomorrowland was something at Kings Island, but the
Yeah.
whole concept of that came directly from Magic Kingdom.
Wow.
So it
Yeah.
is very, very interesting, and just interesting to think about how one minor, well, I'm sure it wasn't minor at the time, but insignificant decision based on a legal department of one company and the personal drive of the person on the other side of the table, how just that one instance literally changed the trajectory of not just the United States, not just Florida, not just California, but Europe, Asia, in all these places that Disney shows up.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting to think about what would have happened, what if, and yeah, I believe it was when the space program, since you brought up Cape Canaveral, the space program got started, and we were trying to send astronauts to the moon. It was President Kennedy that, and I'm going to botch the speech. The quote from the speech is that he had said that we do these things not because they are easy, but because they're hard.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the drive. If you look at the biography of how Walt Disney started and the things that he did, it was not an easy ride. And everything that he did was to improve on what he did before. Maybe because he got smacked down to earth and had to get the resolve that we're going to change this. And
Yeah.
there's another quote that I'm going to that I'm going to say is that change only comes when we do hard things, and that's not just theme park. That's if for you in college studying your doing different tests, different studies, different projects, or if you're doing a project for work or whatever the thing may be. Change only happens and growth only happens when you do hard things.
Yeah, and Walt himself has a great quote where he said, "This is literally it. It's very simple.
Mm-hmm.
I hope we never lose sight of one thing. All that
Well, it
started with a
started
mouse."
as a
Of
mouse.
course, yeah.
Did
So,
it, or was it a rabbit?
or was it a rabbit? There's the question. Yeah, so crazy, crazy stuff to reimagine. And maybe we'll have some more of
Mm-hmm.
these reimaginings in the future. If there's anything you would like us to reimagine, place it down in the comments below, and we would love to do it right here on the show
Yeah.
next week.
I think we could get a lot of mileage out of the what if questions because it's interesting to think about. Okay, what if Hurricane Katrina never destroyed Six Flags in New Orleans? Or what if Universal hadn't put Universal Orlando there? Or any number of things. You could jump down any kind of rabbit hole you wanted to, and imagine a completely alternative reality.
Yes. I love that. That's good stuff. I mean, that's what we're all about anyway, right? Is
Yeah.
themed entertainment and alternative realities. So alternative realities in themed entertainment is even more meta and cool. All right, this week, our guest here on the Attractions Group podcast is a current Orlando local, a co-host on the Discover Universal podcast, and someone with whom I am truly very excited to talk about, of course, Epic Universe. Welcome to the show, Miss Cassie Tucker.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming on.
Of course, of course.
And honestly, right out of the gate, I got to apologize because I think the name of the podcast of your podcast is Discover Universal, but I think in a number of things I might have been calling it Explore Universal. I'm
Totally
not going to
okay.
confirm or deny that, but I think I've been miscalling it that for about a week now.
Hey, it's a synonym to discover, right? So you're close enough. It's totally fine.
I think it's like a progression, right? You know, you come into town the first time, you have to discover Universal, and now you're exploring it. So it's great.
Hey, I like it. I think that makes sense.
Well, awesome. Cassie, thanks for coming on.
Thank you. I, again, appreciate you having me. I love talking theme parks, of course. So excited to chat through it with you guys.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about how you got into theme parks and about how you started on the Discover Universal podcast and where that's kind of led you.
Yeah. So how I got started in theme parks really began at childhood. I grew up going to the parks. I lived in Ohio, as I shared with both of you earlier off record. And this is where we vacationed. We came down to Orlando. We went to Disney. We hit Universal. We did all of the things, traveled over to California, did the parks out there. So I really had a love for the parks ever since I was a kid. And then once I ended up moving to Florida in college, I did the Disney College program. So from the very early stages of my professional career, I was like, I'm going to get into theme parks. I'm going to do something here. Had a love for the storytelling and just everything behind it, operations, et cetera. And so that's really where my professional journey with it began. And I didn't do a whole lot with the theme parks after that. I got into hospitality marketing, worked with a lot of restaurants, which my experience with Disney definitely helped me in that space. But fast forward to more of the recent years, I got into podcasting pretty heavily back in 2021, built a love for that. And the Discover Universal opportunity came across my desk in 2023, ended up auditioning for that opportunity and getting it shortly thereafter. And that brings us to today, which has been an amazing journey. And I'm so incredibly grateful for the opportunity just to be able to now talk professionally about something that I love so much and share that with all of our guests and audience. And it's been an awesome time.
Can I back you up a couple spots? What areas were you involved with at in the Disney College program? What sort of areas did you get into?
Yeah.
And how long?
So I did it for almost a year. So I was on the Fall Advantage program. So what that means is you start early summer and then you go through the fall into Christmas time or the holidays. And so I was there for about 8 or 9 months and I did merchandise. So again, I was working in the gift shops. I worked at Animal Kingdom, front entrance, and we had a number of different shops there that we were managing. I ended up getting into the delivery services program, which I don't know if you all remember back in the day when Disney would literally ship quote unquote packages from guests to the front of the entrance that you could pick up at the end of the day. And so I was in charge or a part of the team that was going around the park throughout the day and collecting those packages to then bring to the front entrance. And it was so much fun. I loved it. I got to drive a truck backstage. It was pretty cool. But I loved being in merchandise. I was getting my degree in PR at the time. So again, to be able to learn about how to talk about the products and the offerings that we had at the parks from a marketing angle, but also a guest experience and customer service angle was really pivotal for my personal career. And of course, the training and traditions and everything was pretty awesome.
So where was your passion? Where did that come from? And did that feed into it or did it seed it?
So it definitely fed into it. I had a passion for the theme parks, for Disney, for even marketing prior to that. But I would say really getting to do that experience and do the college program, which I recommend to any young professional. If you are interested in doing it, please go do it, apply. It's an incredible program. It's something still to this day that stands out on my resume. And so I would say it definitely fed that love and passion. And I began to just explore more about the operations side of the business. Again, the marketing, the storytelling, and now even to this day with consulting that I do on the side of podcasting, storytelling is deeply rooted in my work every day with clients. And I would say that desire to infuse that into my work really started with my love for the parks and the stories of Disney and Universal that began even into childhood for me.
Super cool. So tell us a little bit more about Discover Universal as a podcast in case someone, has been living under a rock maybe and doesn't know anything about it. What would you say about maybe some of your highlights in the process of making those episodes and some of the kind of behind the scenes details people may not get to witness?
Sure. So the Discover Universal podcast is Universal Studios or Universal Orlando Resorts key podcast, the number one show. We do cover Hollywood from time to time as well, but we are rooted and stationed here in Orlando. So that's a big part of what we cover. And it is the goal with our show is really to provide that direct from the company information. We interview creatives from the team, chefs to talk about the food, etc. And so you're really getting that direct information and knowledge from the company versus a fan podcast, which we absolutely love, but it's supplementing some of that more fan opinion and information with what is actually coming from the company. What is the company saying is down the road that is actually in the works. And so we're able to kind of supplement that content for guests, which has been cool. And seeing the guests really latch onto that and then use that in their fan content that they're creating has been awesome. But we talk to, again, we have guests on the show every single episode. We talk to those creatives and the people from the company actually involved in the projects, getting to hear their experience launching Epic Universe or whatever the project is and hearing about that story when it started and what that creative process was for them. And we share that out to guests every so often. And the episodes have been so fun. I would say, the highlight for me has been talking about Epic Universe. We started recording those episodes early last year. And so obviously now we are in the thick of Epic Universe coming to us very soon in May of 2025. But to be able to hear a lot of those insights really early on before a lot of this information was out was really, really exciting. And just now to see everything come together and come to life. And for example, too, we got to visit the Epic Universe site last August, I believe. So to see that construction at that point and now until today, it's insane what the team has built and put together. And I know a lot of people, including you, Cleet, have been able to see it so far, but I can't wait for guests to see this park. It's going to be incredible. It is incredible.
Yeah, I feel so excluded.
Oh, you'll get down here soon, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, David, I hate to say it, but you kind of should. You're missing out in a big way. So I don't know.
No, hey, IAPA's not far. It's not far. No, just come down here for IAPA and do it.
And I gotta wonder if there's going to be some sort of a meetup that they have. I don't think they've released the entire details of the expo yet, but it would certainly seem that would be something that would be on there.
I can imagine. I know that the Universal Creatives always have a presence at the event, so I can imagine that that's something that is in the works. So we'll definitely see once that schedule comes out.
Yeah, and there's usually a bunch of people, the Universal Creative and Universal Orlando, and a number of people that probably more of them walk the aisles of the trade show that I've seen.
Yeah, absolutely. They're just trying to keep tabs on what's going on and happening in the space, so.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit about Epic Universe, if you don't mind, because it's just too big not to, I suppose. For you, talking about this early on for a long time, thinking about the future, what it was going to be like, when you actually got to Epic Universe, what were some of the things that stood out to you, some of the maybe surprises you found with the park?
Yeah. So my first vantage point, going back to July of last year, I would
Mm.
say one of my first viewings of the park was from Bar Helios at the top of Helios Grand Hotel. And my first thought is this place is massive. So
Yeah.
what you've seen in video
Mhm.
and what you have thought of the park, it truly is so huge. There's so much to do and so much space to explore. And so I would say that's the number one thing. The second thing is just this idea that there really is something for everyone. It's so cool to see these different IPs that have come together in the park. You know, there's something for kids, adults, people of all ages. Like literally, I would say each IP, I think every age really falls in love with those different stories. But, you know, it's cool to see, again, all of these IPs come together in this cohesive story. The story of the park is very cool. And so I think that's the biggest thing, the scale, the immersion, the stories we get to experience and be immersed in. I mean, there's so much, but those I would say are the first things that really, I would say, came to light early on for me.
That's incredible. I think for me, when I walked into the park, I was just blown away with like the first 100 yards of Celestial Park when you walk through
Yep.
that first tunnel are like the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in any park. You know, Universal has said they're going to put the park back in theme park. You know,
Yep.
they're going to like make these kind of nature integrations in beautiful ways, and success way beyond what I was expecting. But I think another really cool kind of attribute of Epic Universe that I don't know that I've seen at any park. Usually, a park has like a kids area because they want to be very much so for everyone. They want to have a place that kids can go. Epic kind of doesn't have a kids area because it doesn't need one. The whole park
Mm-hmm.
is able to be enjoyed by, I think, a 5-year-old kid or a, you know, it's anyone. No, it
Yes.
doesn't matter. And that's truly, I think, something very special they've done over there.
I know. I think so too. You know, we think of Universal Studios as being typically geared to more of those seasoned attraction riders, right? There's a lot of thrill rides. There's rides that maybe some of our riders that aren't as okay with insane, intense attractions are going to ride. But I really do, to your point, feel like Epic Universe has opened the gate to riders of all ages to enjoy a lot of different experiences. So I think that's something that they were very intentional on doing is how can we not only gear this to our fans of thrill attractions, but also to maybe some younger kids who are building up the courage to ride their first coaster. There's a lot of options for them. And then even taking
Mhm.
that next step after that. And so that's been really cool to see. And of course, we have our typical play area at Isle of Burke, for example, but there's so much more that kids, for example, can enjoy. And maybe even it's not an attraction. Maybe it's sitting down in a bench in Celestial Park and looking out
Mhm.
in the views and watching the fountains and seeing the sights and everything. And so there's so much to do there. And it's just, I mean, I know, I feel like we'll talk about this, but I really don't think that one day is enough. Just a little
I
teaser
was
for
just going to
you.
ask that.
But yes, yes. Yeah. One day is
So
not enough,
it's
in
definitely
my
going to be a
opinion.
So how are they going to structure those tickets? Because you have three basically world class parks from the Studios
I
Islands
know.
Adventure, now Epic. How many is that going to be? A 5-day ticket? I mean,
I
honestly.
Yeah, I'm not sure yet fully what they'll plan to do there. I know they have a couple of those ticket options now where it's the 3-day where you get one park per day,
Mhm.
right? But I am curious to see what's coming. I mean, even me working for the brand, I'm an annual pass holder, and I'm still curious, what are we going to have for annual pass holders once the time comes that they
Mhm.
feel comfortable to unveil that? So things like that, I think we'll continue to get rollouts of those offerings as the
Mhm.
months go on, as they gauge the audiences and how many people and guests are attending the parks at a given time, and really giving operations time to work out those kinks, which is a smart decision, in my opinion, right? We don't want
Mhm.
to flood the operations and let people go in there and trickle in slowly. But yeah, I'm curious. I don't know. I mean, you know, thinking about just how pivotal this rollout is in and of itself. I mean, we haven't had a theme park open in the Orlando area in 20 plus years,
From the
right?
ground
So
up, yeah.
yeah. And I think about this experience for the team of building something for the first time at this scale, but also building something at this time when we have a lot more technology available in our hands. And so I know for a fact, they have all this data that they're analyzing and figuring out, when should we be rolling out these different offerings? What should we offer? And then even understanding the guest experience, right? Like, how many days do guests need at this park? What's the typical kind of standard that we're going to recommend? I know we've been talking a lot about it being a week-long experience now at Universal Orlando Resort, which I fully believe it is a week-long experience now with Epic Universe. And so it's going to be interesting to see what that messaging continues to come out as, and kind of what those offerings are going to be available to us as well.
So are they doing park reservations? I don't remember if we discussed that or not, but are they doing, you have to get a reservation for a specific day?
So right now, as you buy per day, yes. So technically it's kind of your ticket and day bundled into one.
Right. So it's assigned, but if the ticket is assigned for a specific day.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Just for curiosity, you may not know the answer to this, but what would they consider park capacity to be? Or they're like, no more reservations were done.
Yeah.
And you may not know the number.
I don't off the top of my head, but I can imagine that it's going to be pretty high given the scale of this park. I don't know the exact sizing of this park compared to the other parks, but I do know it is bigger than each individual park that we have now. But in terms of how that drives to capacity, I'm not sure. That's a really good question. Yeah.
I had kind of a weird experience there where there were, lines the day I was there, no doubt.
Yeah.
I believe Donkey Kong was somewhere around 60 to 80 minutes for most of the day. The Ministry's, of course, using the virtual line. Monsters Unleashed was probably around 40 minutes for most of the day. But yet, the park, when you were walking through it, it was like kind of empty, which was really interesting. I think, especially like in the Wizarding Paris area, there are two like large restaurants in there, and I guess maybe it's pulling people in the direction of the million things that they offer that makes the crowds feel so spread out. But it was pretty impressive to feel pretty empty in a day that it was definitely not.
I know. And I think that goes back to just how much space outside of those attractions there is available. Like, as you mentioned, Cleet, Celestial Park itself is huge and there's so much open space, which I think is gorgeous. Like, I've joked on the podcast before how I want to bring a book to the park and just sit and read, and that's it. Like, it's so beautiful. It's so open. You have space to breathe, which I really appreciate. I mean, I can think of all of the theme park experiences I've had where I'm rubbing elbows with other guests and you can barely walk around. And so I'm very excited to see, at least for previews for now, that we do have that vast open space to just enjoy and take in all the details and see everything. And then I'm sure that will ramp up as the park gets going. But yeah, we'll see.
Cassie, as you go to the park, now when you go to Studios and Islands of Adventure, they have City Walk, which is kind of your buffer from the parking area to getting into the parks. Is there a version of that at Epic? And also, kind of a second question, because normally in those areas are places to eat before you get into the park.
Right.
Are the food options completely different? And those are actually two separate questions. But what is the infrastructure like leading up to the park?
Yeah. So the parking lot, for example, so you're arriving for the first time, you park, it's a flat lot. So we do not have a garage at Universal Epic Universe right now. There is a garage at Helios. So if you're staying there, you have a garage system there. Obviously, that's a different entrance experience than just coming to the park itself. But you do walk in from a flat lot. It is quite a bit of a walk, so just letting guests know, if that is an issue, just to come prepared for that. And then you enter the park turnstiles and security, and you are here. There's no shopping and dining experience on your way in like there is at the North Campus or Universal Orlando Resort, the other area. And so that is it. I will say Celestial Park is very reminiscent of a city walk, for example. It's a very heavy dining and shopping experience. And so if you are looking for something to compare it to, I would say that's the closest comparison. However, you have to have a ticket in order to experience that area, right? So again, no open experience for other guests. And that comes with its pros and cons, right? For me, I think about sometimes coming to North Campus again, and it's crazy busy, but maybe there's an event happening at City Walk, but not in the parks, right? So it's kind of hard sometimes to gauge that level of popularity on a given day. Whereas with Epic Universe, that lot is specifically for guests with tickets. So that's kind of a bit of a comparison for you there. And then to answer your second question, food offerings are completely different. So we do not have any repetitive food offerings, which is very exciting. Our chef Jens, who's in charge of the food program at Epic Universe, as well as all of Universal Orlando Resort, is incredible. He's been with the company for a year and a half. And I will tell you that he and his team did an amazing job on the food program at Epic Universe. I don't know about you, Cleet, but like everything I have tried is delicious. And so I'm excited for you to try everything too, David. And there's so many options. I have not tasted everything yet. I've not been to every restaurant. There's just so many spots to enjoy, which is a good problem to have. So
yeah, I ate before my visit there because I was thinking, this is a smart move. I'll save some money and I will have more time to ride rides.
You go. Hey.
And then I ate lunch eventually, and I was like, dang it, I should not have eaten before I came. Food would have been so good. And I still ended up having 3 meals in about 6 hours. So,
that's called theme park stomach. You're surprisingly hungrier at a theme park than you ever are. And you're like, I might as well try 9 different things versus my normal eating capacity on another day, which makes it fun. I will say, if you don't want to come hungry, that's fine. But if you do want to try a lot of things, come hungry because there are more than just a few options to enjoy at Epic Universe.
Yes. So let's talk for a second about some of the particular attractions at Epic Universe and maybe provide some, although it's pretty hard to do, some comparisons for maybe people who have only been to the North Campus. So start off over in the Isle of Berk. The first attraction I rode when I was there was the Gerstlauer Air Race. I believe it's called the I don't know.
The hiccup. So I always get Hiccup's wing gliders, and Fire Drill is the water attraction, and then we have Dragon Racers Rally. I believe that is Dragon Racers Rally.
Yes.
I get that in the coaster confused all the time, but yes, that's a great ride. It's very fun.
Super cool. Super, like you get to kind of make your own experience with it a little bit too, which makes it very re-rideable. And then over there we also have the coaster, right, which is a very fun experience, and it's not unbelievably thrilling to where it would be intimidating to everyone. There's Fire Drill, which is I didn't ride. It just looked too wet for me. I don't know. Yeah. That looks like a ride you would genuinely get drenched on.
You will get soaked. Yes.
And then there's the Untrainable Dragon show over there, which leads me to note as a side point, I don't think I've ever been to a park with as much quality entertainment as Epic Universe. There is, I believe it's called the Cirque Arcanu over in Wizarding Paris.
Yeah, you got it. Yep.
Okay, great. There was a little street show in Wizarding Paris.
Yep.
It was so delightful. I mean, literally, that one I think was my favorite, which is silly to say, but with like these 3 jazz musicians just crushing it over there. The Untrainable Dragon. And then I saw a 1-person retelling of the Phantom of the Opera in Dark Universe. I mean, there are some really, really cool entertainment options here that I think you can't skip.
Yes, I agree. So I'm going to butcher this number, but we did an episode on the entertainment offerings at Epic Universe, and I believe there are 30 plus total entertainment
my.
offerings. And that is including
Wow.
stage shows, street shows, entertainment interactions that you have throughout the different lands, such as Dark Universe. You know, you have those violinists out there, you have people walking around doing those one-man shows per se. And so there is a lot to take in. And this is also why I say, book more than one day if you can. You could have a full day just for entertainment. But the Untrainable Dragon and Le Cirque Arcanu are the two main stage shows that you'll see for now. And those are incredible. They've really leveled up those experiences. I won't give too much away if you haven't seen them, but Le Cirque Arcanu is very much also technology and magic driven as well. So there's a lot of surprises there, as well as the Untrainable Dragon. There's something very cool that happens if you look up during the show. And so lots of really awesome things, and the team really leveled it up, like you said, Clete.
Absolutely. So continuing to spread our way around the park just for a moment here, we have the two major attractions in Celestial Park. There's,
Yes.
of course, the carousel. There is the, coaster enthusiast inside of me's favorite attraction, Stardust Racers.
Yes. Yes.
Stardust Racers might have the coolest sign I've ever seen on a ride. There's this, great maybe photo op, great maybe just visual, but it's very, very cool.
Yes.
And then the continuing down this route, we have the Wizarding Paris, which is going to be an unbelievable area. It's so cool. But it does have, of course, the Ministry, which has right now the virtual line system. I was not, unfortunately, lucky enough to get the virtual line, which is too bad, but I'll get it later this year. It's not worried about it.
Yeah. Something to look forward to. Yeah.
Yes.
Something to look forward to. It's an incredible attraction. Again, we'll not give too much away, but there are things in that attraction that you have never experienced from a Wizarding World attraction before at the other parks. And so highly recommend. I know it's tricky right now with getting in there, but once you do get in there, soak it up because it is so cool. But the queue alone, no words. I don't have any words for the queue. It's massive. It is beautiful. I could sit in there all day too, and maybe even bring a book like at Celestial Park. It's amazing. And so again, the team has just leveled up expectations. I know the partnership with Warner Brothers is very strong, and they're always looking to even just outdo themselves. But the scale of the Wizarding World, Ministry of Magic alone is insane. I believe, again, this is a fact that came from Universal Creative on the show, but I believe the tallest building in Diagon Alley, something like the Wizarding World Ministry of Magic exceeds that or something like that. So just when you enter into that land, you don't see anything else outside of that land. You are fully immersed, and everything is in French. So definitely recommend getting your French app out and learning that before coming to the park. But it's amazing. But yes, that attraction is incredible. So highly recommend if you can make it in there.
Yes. Yes. And then, of course, the Frankenstein experiment, Monsters Unleashed, is an unbelievable attraction with some genuine terror in my eyes.
Yes.
And then the Curse of the Werewolf is a great roller coaster over there in Dark Universe. And then we move on to Super Nintendo World, which is, of course, an extremely beloved land that we've actually seen before over in Hollywood and in Japan. But it's new to most of the visitors that are going to Epic Universe, certainly. And the Minecart Madness, Bowser's Racing, what is the name of that attraction? It's like
Bowser's Challenge or Minecart Madness, Bowser's Challenge, I believe.
I think it's that's right.
Maybe
Bowser's Challenge,
on
like
that one.
And that queue is unbelievable. That queue is like, I am in a video game. I don't know how it happened, but I really am. I'm here in a video game.
Yes. Yeah. It's very fun. Well, you mentioned too, we have a lot of this stuff in Hollywood and in Japan, for example, but this is really the first time all of those attractions and things are combined into one. Yep. So, Donkey Kong, for example, is out in Japan, but not in Hollywood. Yoshi's Adventure is in Japan, but not in Hollywood. Hollywood has Minecart Madness. So it's really a combined version of everything. And scale wise, it is larger than any of the other Nintendo Worlds that we have in the other parks. And so it's insane. You walk in, everything is kinetic. There's different levels. You have different experiences even outside of the attractions too, with the power up bands, and so there's fun there that you can have. And yeah, it's amazing. Even though we do have it other places, it just takes it again to the next level, and it's been fun to see guests' reaction to all of that.
Yes, amazing.
It's been fun to watch this tennis match go back and forth between two people who've been there before. Yeah. So it's keep going. One thing I do like about Universal is they invested all this money in the park in Orlando, and then on the heels of it opening, they're already making announcements that they're going to do this overseas. I mean, is it Scotland or UK? Probably UK.
Yes, in the UK.
I forget which one.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah.
And then they made an announcement of another location, didn't they?
Well, so there's the kids resort, which will be in Frisco, Texas.
Yes,
we do.
I thought there was another one overseas.
Not as of now, I believe. I think UK was just announced. And then, Cleet mentioned Horror Unleashed too, which is a whole different kind of experience in Vegas. But that's going to be really cool too, just to have year-round horror, which fans have always desired for. So that's going to be pretty amazing as well. So
yeah, 100%.
Yeah, lots of things in the works.
So Cassie, unless there's other things to talk about Epic, which I cannot relate to because I haven't been there yet. There's a lot of other things that you do in beyond your work with the podcast with Discover Universal. But what are some of the other things that you get yourself into?
Yeah, a lot of different things. My day job, quote unquote, is marketing consulting. So work with a lot of business owners on building their marketing strategies from the ground up, doing a lot of copywriting. And then I also host my own podcast as well. So it's called Marketing Happy Hour. So I talk to a lot of different industry professionals, some in the theme park space. I try to get as many people on there as I can. I've had people from Disney in the past, from Universal, from Busch Gardens. And so as much as I can weave in my theme park love into that show as well, I definitely do. But I wear a lot of hats. No day is the same, which makes things exciting. And I'm really grateful for all the experience. But Universal has been fun again, just to be back in the corporate space and experiencing marketing from that lens versus doing my own thing, which is again more of that small entrepreneurship based work. And it's been a great balance.
What are some of the projects that you've liked working on? Something that would take you from start to finish?
Yeah. So, and are you asking in terms of like the marketing work specifically?
Right.
Okay. Yeah. So, oh gosh, a number of things. So I have had the privilege of working with a lot of people who have been previously in the space. So, in the theme park space, I should say. So, David, you and I met through Jody Mayberry, a connection, and got to work with him and work with a lot of former executives at Disney. And so, again, any chance that I get to weave in theme parks into my day job, I definitely gravitate towards that. So have done a lot of event work with them in the past, did a lot of marketing for different launches, courses, etc. And so again, have worn a lot of hats in that space, but typically my day-to-day again is working with small to large business owners all across the board in different industries, building out what that plan is for their marketing, and then how do we execute it and helping with that execution. And so whether it's promoting products or an experience offering or events or whatever it is, how do we use marketing to drive those? And a lot of what is weaved into that marketing is storytelling, like I mentioned. So I heavily rely on storytelling, the audience's story, but also the brand story, and being able to push the messaging around that product or service out.
Let me go on what you just mentioned, because I had in one of my notes that I wrote down earlier with storytelling. Now, from where you sit, what are the key elements that goes into good storytelling? And maybe let's pick an industry, because that's pretty ambiguous. I don't know. Let's or Cassie, pick an industry, something that you've worked in.
Oh gosh. Well, even talking about theme parks, right? Like I would say the biggest thing that I would recommend, and this can apply to any business, but specifically thinking about theme parks. You enter Disney or you enter Universal, and you are the hero of that story of your day. You are becoming a prince, a pirate, a princess, whatever it is. And you're going through and you're conquering challenges and you're, being entered into these stories yourself. And so I think that again can apply to a number of industries. Is I always recommend to business owners, we have this tendency to focus on ourselves as the hero or the key part of the story, but how can we flip that on its head and allow the guest or the person experiencing what we're offering to be the hero of that story? And so navigating the messaging around that. And so again, if you've noticed with Disney, with Universal, a lot of the messaging is engaged around you and what you'll get to conquer or what you'll get to do when you enter those stories. And that story is different for every land or area that you're in, but ultimately you are the one taking part in that story. You're not in this outside looking in experience with that. And so I think again, that's something that can be applied to any industry, of just telling someone why they should pay attention and why that matters to them, and being able to take them on a journey through transformation or through an experience.
Mm-hmm. I do like the storytelling where when you go to a specific ride, for instance, any of the Harry Potter rides at the North Campus. There, I'm talking in the
Yeah.
terminology already.
Yeah, no, it's
when
fine.
you're out there, from the moment you hit the line, and even outside in the area that the particular attraction is in, you're in the story from the very
Yes.
moment that you enter that land to the moment that you go to the, including any parts of the rides you go to.
Yes.
That's great storytelling. It, at what could be a 2-hour line, which I would hate to wait in. I don't care how good the story is. I'd hate to wait in that. But no,
Yeah.
it fits into what Damian Nelson, who we had on last week, had mentioned, that you always want to make sure the people in the line are moving. And when they move into this line queue, they go into a different section of the story here, and they go into the next, and you're part of another story. It's great storytelling, and it's a lot of things that it's mundane, it's an investment, but it's guest facing, and it's just adds to the experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a great example. And just going off of your Wizarding World example there, not giving too much away with the Ministry of Magic attraction, but when you get onto that ride vehicle, one of the things that the team members say to you is good luck on trial, for example. So you are taking part of that trial alongside the characters of that story. And so I strongly believe, when Universal Creative or Imagineers or whoever it is are developing these attractions that we know and love, it's what is that guest position? How are they taking part in that story? What are they doing? What is the story that they're experiencing, and how are they getting out to the other end? And a lot of times you'll notice a lot of these attractions today, especially the story-based attractions, have kind of this flow that they go through. You start out, what is the problem you're solving? You go through whatever that problem is, and then most likely you have conquered that problem, and now you're coming out to the other end, and you're following through that in 1 minute, 3 minutes, however long that attraction is. And so it's also the skill of being able to tell a really detailed story in a very short period of time, and hopefully it making sense to a guest who has never watched these movies or read these books, or to someone who knows and loves these stories, of just making sure it's clear, it's concise, and it's engaging too at the same time.
See what she did there, Cleet? She did the little nugget there, took the grenade and yanked the pin out and tossed it out there. And now, because naturally my follow-up question is going to be, so what's the story? What are we getting at? And I know what the answer is going to be before I even ask it. Well, go to Epic and find out.
Yeah,
you have to, I don't want to give it away.
You just
It's so
tickets
cool.
There. No,
I know.
good.
I know. You got to come, and then we'll talk about it. We'll chat off record again about what your experience was. But I mean, we've done some teaser stuff. So, Dolores Umbridge is there. There's some different things that you experience, but I don't want to give too much of it away, especially the mechanics of the attraction, because it is so cool and so shocking and just unlike anything you've experienced, especially from Harry Potter, but from Universal as well. So it's pretty sick.
So we're kind of talking about this here. I've been to Epic Universe and obviously want to go back. David's never been to Epic Universe,
Thank you.
but does want to go. I just think we need to really hammer that point home. David
Sure.
had never been Epic. But
If you say it enough, it'll make him come sooner. So
that's
we
right.
just have to keep
There you
going.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So, how can, from a marketing perspective, how can a
Sure.
park adequately make a marketing strategy, make a PR strategy that doesn't just appeal to people like me who have already been to Epic Universe, or just appeal to people like David who have never been? How can they really get on both sides of that coin in the way that they are trying to get their message out?
Yeah, so it's very deep and goes back months to years prior to opening, right? Of developing whatever that overarching story is, and then how do you segment that out to families who maybe live in Wisconsin, Ohio, who have never been to Universal, or maybe they have once and they're thinking of coming back. To your point, Clete, how do you make that appealing to audiences all across the U.S.? And I think one thing it does come down to is making sure that, and this goes for any business, any theme park, whatever, making sure that you are segmenting your audience. So we have a lot of data available to us nowadays as we're running businesses, of being able to understand where a specific customer is at in their journey. How many times have they been to the parks? Have they been 100 times? Have they been twice? And being able to tailor the story or the messaging to those different people. And this can be done with paid social targeting, with PR campaigns, with app-based notifications and pop-ups and things like that. We're also seeing with Epic Universe, I don't know if you all saw, but they did this pop-up in different cities
didn't.
with where they put the portals in the different areas. And that's another way. It's kind of that experiential, gets people curious about what this thing in the middle of Rockefeller Center in New York City is doing here, gets them interested, and then they look it up and they figure out what it is. And then I think it's also too really heavily relying on those IPs as well to engage
Sure.
people. So, someone from, again, Wisconsin, Ohio, wherever you live, they may not know about Epic Universe in its totality, but maybe they're a huge Harry Potter fan and they had no idea that there's this other world that's opening up and this land that they get to experience. And that is a piece of the story that Universal can use to hook that audience in and say, well, don't you want to come down and see this next third installment of the Wizarding World, for example? So, we have the great opportunity, for example, to be able to leverage those IPs. And I will say that is definitely helpful. But again, it is, what is that value proposition overall of coming to the park? What is that experience and that story that family is going to experience coming down here? And how can you par that down depending on the level of knowledge that a guest has with the park, with the parks overall, and just what does that vacation look like to them, and really selling that experience to that family.
Yeah, absolutely.
And sometimes the rides, though, to be quite honest, and not to keep going back to the Harry Potter areas in the North
Mhm.
Campus, but I will say honestly that for the longest time, I hadn't physically seen any of the Harry Potter movies. I've heard them many times because of driving the
Mhm.
car, and my daughter's in the back seat watching on the DVD
Yeah.
system. Uh, behind, I've heard the movies many times, but I hadn't seen them. But the storytelling that Universal has done within the Hagrid's and I'm sorry, what's the other one?
Gringotts.
Forbidden Journey and
Oh, that
Gringotts.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. In all of them, the storytelling in the line queue and even the ride itself is so immersive that even though I've only heard parts of the movie at that point, you could pick up pieces. Oh, this is where this is at. This is where this is
Right.
at. I mean, the storytelling is just incredible, and literally people go to the parks for that immersive experience, to be able to forget
Mhm.
about what's on the outside of the gate for, whether it's a couple hours a day, couple days for a week. There's
Yep.
stuff out here in the real world that you don't want to deal with. And
Right.
once you get inside the park, you want to be exactly where that story puts you.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
Universal does it amazingly.
Yeah, and I think going back to the question about the marketing, I mean, that's a huge piece, right? It's how can we get people to have an escape from their real life
Mhm.
and be part of this fantasy experience? And obviously what's happening in this park is not always reality, but it makes you feel like it is real. And I think that level of immersion and detail, especially at Epic Universe, has been able to make people feel that, right? You don't feel like you're in Orlando, Florida. You feel like you're in Place Cachet in Wizarding Paris, or you feel like you're in Isle of Burke because of turning around and looking and seeing everything around you is immersed in that story. And then you become immersed as well. But that escape factor, just, life is crazy, life is hard. And so how can we create this experience that is simple for people logistically as much as possible, but also just makes them feel this experience to a deep level and feel that story and make memories ultimately. That's the other thing that just keeps people coming back for more too, is how can we be a part as a company of families making memories that last a lifetime, and they'll be engaged and excited to come back and make even more memories down the road. So,
yeah.
So what I hear you telling me is, correct me if I'm wrong, there aren't real dinosaurs chasing you on a Velocicoaster?
Of course there are.
Yeah. Okay, good. Good. I was worried for a second. Yeah.
No, of course. Please.
So Cassie, as you have with your independent marketing, what you do with the other places, not outside of your podcast, both of them, I guess.
Yeah.
What are some of the projects that you work on, or is there some of the work that you try to do, and what is coming up next? What can we expect to come from you?
Yeah. Oh goodness. What is coming up next? Hopefully lots of more podcasting on the horizon. So look out for that. Lots of different work. I won't bore you with too many of the details, but marketing work. I'm going to a lot of conferences this year. I hope to be at IAPA in November. That would be really awesome. So stay tuned for that. But I'm always doing something different. So follow along on Instagram or wherever, and I'm sure you'll see something new next week. But just trying to stay busy and work on projects and help people. That's my biggest goal, is just help people grow their own businesses, learn about the businesses I'm working with. And so ultimately that's what I'm working on all the time.
All right. Well, if people do want to get in touch with you, what are some of the social media ways they can, website? How can, if people want to reach out to you, how do they do that?
Yeah. So my main website is marketingwithcassie.com. LinkedIn is one of my favorite platforms. So I'm Cassie Tucker there. And then Instagram is Cassie Joy Tucker. Those are the three best places to connect with me. Would love to chat. Please reach out. And yeah, would love to connect with y'all.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much for being so generous with your time and giving us so many exciting things to talk about. I'm sure David and I will talk about how he hasn't been to Epic Universe some more later in the episode. But, we got to really nail that home, which makes me happy.
Absolutely. And David, once you do get here, just let us know. And so we can talk about all the details alongside you. So looking
I was
forward
just going to say, we'd love to have you on sometime later in the year, when possibly after I make my journey there, and after the park does open fully to the public, and you can talk about all the things that you couldn't really talk about today.
Sure. Yeah. Would love it. Let's do it. Looking forward to it.
All right. Awesome. Well,
Awesome.
now, when do you, as it goes about your podcast, the Discover Universal podcast, how can people find that, and how do people, when does it post? How often does it post?
Yes. So Discover Universal podcast, you can find it on any podcast platforms, also on YouTube. If you go to the Universal Orlando Resort YouTube channel, you'll be able to find it there as well, the video episodes, which we try to infuse as much behind the scenes and in-park content as we can into that, try to make it really visual and fun. How often it's going out? It's every few weeks now. I'm sure it'll ramp up again here soon. But things have been crazy busy with Epic, so stay tuned for more content there. But there's a lot of great resources on the YouTube channel, as well as the Discover Universal blog as well. So check both of those out.
So not to drag this out further, but one more question about the podcast.
Sure.
Right now, I assume it's mostly Epic centric. That's where you spend most of your time talking about. But once Epic Universe does open, is it going to go back to, you're talking about the studios a couple of times, or maybe a week, and then you go to Islands of Adventure? So is it going to go talking about all three? I guess four if you talk about the City Walk.
Yeah, so we try to rotate things as much as possible. Right now, to your point, David, it is very heavily Epic Universe. Another huge driver for us, though, as well, is Halloween Horror Nights. So we are entering season for Halloween Horror Nights here very rapidly, and so typically every year we do these really awesome stories on the original concept houses called Echoes from the Fog, and so our entertainment team puts together these stories, and so we always recommend to people before you're coming to the parks for the event, listen to those stories so that when you're walking through the houses, you really understand what is happening in those stories to a deeper level. You're able to share that with your friends and family. And so, again, that is a really huge part for us every year. And that season starts very early on, and we are definitely gearing up for that. So stay tuned for all of that content as well.
Cool.
All right. I'll shut up now.
I love it. Thank you, guys. This was so
Thank
fun.
you so much.
Yes, thanks for coming on.
Absolutely.
All right, David. How about that? Great interview.
It was a good interview. She, a multi-talented person. It's a number of things. When I knew she was going to come on, never really had thought about, okay, hey, we're going to have someone from the Discover Universal podcast on just weeks before the park opens. And of course, we didn't get any insight out there that's not already out there. But at the same time, to get somebody who has a front row view of everything happening and just get fresh perspective. And I know I haven't been to the park. You have. I haven't been there, but just to be able to have Cassie on and hear about her experiences and what she does, it's amazing.
Sure is. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, thanks for checking us out this week here on the Attractions Group podcast. Make sure to hit those links down in the box. All of Cassie's stuff will be in there. And also will be in there is our episode about Six Flags America's closure. If you haven't checked that out already, make sure to do so.
All right. That's all we got. And we are out of here.